In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to edit your greeting card. So first we need to start in Lightroom. You should have already taken your images and you should have taken 25 iterations of your flat lay. Now as you can see here, I only did 5 because this one is the final one and I'm going to show you how I got there. All right, but just go with me. Now you're going to go through your images and you can rate them to figure out which one is your best one. And once you find it, we're going to go ahead and edit it. Now this one and this one are the same, so I'll show you the before and after. All right, so this is actually what it looked like before. I took the picture a little bit farther away so you can still see some of like the table, and it's a little bit dark, and so we're going to make some adjustments. So let's start by just cropping. We're going to go to the crop tool, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set our ratio. Make sure it's either on original, which is the same as 2:3. That's what we want for this project. So I'm going to set it to that 2:3 option. Alrighty. And that's already looking really good. I'm just trying to cut out any of the table I don't want. Now you can actually crop more if you want, like if you want to get rid of some of the stuff on the edges, feel free to make those adjustments. Okay. I think that's looking pretty good. Now this is also a good place to straighten your image. So especially if you have lines, objects that are lined up, you want to make sure that your image looks straight. So as you turn this, it gives you some guidelines to kind of make sure that things are not crooked. So take some time to make sure things are not crooked. Alrighty. All right, once you're good, you can let go. All right, and then that should be it in the cropping section. Now for the rest of the editing in Lightroom, you can use either manual edits or presets. I'm going to go ahead and hop into presets because that's what I prefer. And I'm going to go ahead and start there. I'm going to see what Lightroom recommends to me. And I want to make sure that what I choose is going to enhance my photo. And as you can see, it's giving me a lot of options here that are overexposing. So make sure that you're choosing something that is not overexposing your image. All right, and I actually like this one. It brings out a lot of the original white in the background. I think it looks pretty good. All righty. Now you can do some further adjustments. Remember that in the editing panel, you can have a little bit more control there. So you can adjust the lighting yourself, but I think especially you can adjust the color. So if you're not liking how some of these colors turned out in camera, like maybe I want my greens to lean a little bit more blue, I can make those slight adjustments to the colors. Okay, I actually do like that. Alrighty. Now that's pretty much it. Feel free to edit however you like. Once you're ready, we're going to export this image. So we're going to right click on it. Let me exit out of that panel real quick. All right, we're going to right click on it and we're going to choose to export one photo and we're just going to do a quick export. So hit JPEG large. This basically makes it to where we don't really have to name it. We just need to save it to our device. So I'm going to save it in my Lightroom saved photos and then select that folder. Once it's done exporting, go ahead and exit out of Lightroom because then we're going to go ahead and go into Photoshop. Now in Photoshop, we need to start by creating a new document. Now go ahead and go to either new file or up to file and then hit new. All right, once you've done that, you're going to make sure that your settings match mine. We're going to switch pixels to inches and we're going to make sure that either we want it to be a 4:6 card. Now my image that I just exported is a horizontal image. It is wider than it is tall. So the 6 is going to go in the width and the 4 is going to go in the height. If you took your images vertically, you're going to swap those numbers. Make sure the resolution is 300 pixels per inch. Everything else should match. And then we're going to go ahead and name the assignment at the top. So your full name dash the project name, which is a card. Go ahead and hit create. This should give you a rectangular document, either vertical or horizontal, depending on the type of images you took. Alrighty, make sure that your rulers are on. I can see I have a ruler here on the top and on the left, and if you can't see your rulers, hit view and make sure that it's selected. We're going to be using the rulers to create basically a guide around the edge of our image. So when we print this card and we put it into our photo frame card, it's going to block off some of the edges. So what we're going to do is we're going to create basically a colored border so that when we put these into our like physical card that this is going to go into, that we don't crop out any of our actual photograph. So just follow me here if that's not making any sense. All right, so we're going to start by making some guides. So remember, to make a guide, you got to click and hold the ruler and then drag. Now your ruler should be in inches. So if you have inches listed on the top and the bottom, we're going to be looking at the left side, and I'm going to be lining this up with 1/4 of an inch. Now this gets a little bit technical. Now watch where my line is. At the top here it's at 0. This is the 1 inch mark. All right, this larger line in between, that's 1/2 inch. We actually want to go to 1/4 inch, which is right between. So it's going to be right there. All right, this is where you want to be specific. So if you don't get it the first time, go ahead and move it. Sometimes zooming in helps as well. We actually want to do the same thing to the bottom. So I'm going to click on the top, drag a line down here. Now I don't want to go all the way 4. Here's 3. This is the middle. Here's 3.5. This one here is just 1/4. Now we want to do this on each side. So I'm going to do the same thing here on the left. Click, hold, and drag. Okay, I don't want it to go all the way to the 6. I want it to go just 1/4 in. All right, and do the same thing on the left. So click, hold, and drag, and then 1/4 in. All right, so basically this is creating a guide for us to create a border, and then we're going to stick our flat lay inside. So let me help you with those directions. All righty, so now we're going to go ahead and insert our image. So we're going to come up to File. Now if you hit Open, it's going to open up in a new tab. We're actually going to go down to Place Embedded and place the image directly into the document. I should be able to find this in my pictures in my Lightroom saved photos. All right, now once you place embedded, it's always going to show up in free transform, and we're going to start by getting it to fit inside of the grid line. So right now it's going from the top, bottom, left, right, filling the document completely. We're actually going to take in one of the corners to fit the sides. All right, I'm going to do the same thing to this corner. All right, do your best to make sure it lines up. Photoshop should help you to kind of line it up to those guides that you made. There we go. So take a couple attempts if you need to. All right, now if you notice, my computer is being a little bit slow here. Get that right. Okay. Now, if you notice, I lined it up well on the left and the right-hand side, but it's still a little bit too big for the top and bottom. So I'm going to actually, while it's in free transform, right-click on the picture, and we're going to choose perspective. This is going to allow us to get it to fit perfectly. All right, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to grab this top left corner and drag it down to where my guides meet and let go. I'm going to go ahead and scroll over to the other side, do the same thing. Click and drag. Let go. Let's go ahead and do this to all corners. Actually, it looks like it fits good now at the bottom. Okay, now if you need to, do all of the corners, but I was able to do just 2 of them, and now look how well that fits. All right, once you like it, hit the check mark. There we go. All right, now the next step is that we're going to be adding a background color. All right, now you totally have an option of just keeping it as white if you want the edges to be white. Great option, don't have to change it. But if you'd like a colored border, keep in mind you're not really gonna see it when you insert into the photo frame card. But if you want a colored border, I'll show you how to add one in. We're gonna actually be making a fill layer. So we're gonna go down to our adjustments in our layers panel. But before we do that, so let's actually click on the background layer because we don't want that layer to cover up our image. So make sure the background layer is selected. Go ahead and click on your adjustments, and we're going to choose solid color. All right, from here you can choose whatever color you want. Okay, but you're going to want to choose a color directly from your image. So instead of going over here and guessing what color is in your photo, we're actually going to grab one. This is going to help with unity, having similar colors throughout the artwork. So if you're going to make a colored border, let's go ahead and use this eyedropper and literally click on the color. So I can click on any of these greens, or I can choose like the yellow of the brush. I have a lot of options here, but if you grab a color that is actually in your photo, things will look like they belong together a little bit better. So I'm actually going to use one of these greens from the photo, maybe something a little bit deeper. Ooh, too dark. All right, I like that. I'm going to press OK. Now, if at any time you change your mind, feel free to double click on the little thumbnail here and you can change the color. All right, keep in mind you also can just keep it white. Totally up to you. All righty. So the next step here is an optional step. So this is the option to kind of repair some things if things are looking a little crazy. Now we've learned how to use the different healing tools here, which you can see: spot healing brush, patch tool, content aware. We also know how to use the clone tool. So you can use any of those tools to basically fix anything. So if you used a backdrop and had to use like multiple of them and you see like a seam, you can basically remove that. If you have any folds or wrinkles in your backdrop, you can remove that as well. Any sort of dust or debris or something that you really didn't want on there, you can remove it. So I'm actually going to show you what that looks like. I don't think mine necessarily needs it, but let's just say that I don't like this one here. Maybe I don't like this little whatever toy this is. So there's probably a couple different tools that would work well, but I'm thinking the patch tool. Again, you can use whatever tool works for you. And again, keep in mind, this is not required. This is only if you have something that needs some mending. Okay. All right, if it gives you this little icon, it just means that your layer needs to be rasterized. You can go ahead and hit OK. And then you can click inside and drag it. I'm going to drag it to a space that looks similar and let go. And hopefully Photoshop does an okay job. Now, it didn't do a perfect job. There's definitely some areas where like the green is still reflecting. So I could probably go through and work on that a few times, but that was just an example of what you could do. I personally don't think I needed to remove it, so I'm going to undo some of those steps. All right, and zoom out. So again, that is an optional step if needed. All right, what we need to do next though is we need to actually start to add in our text. So you remember that you have the option of installing your own fonts. If you want to know more about installing your own fonts, check out the video for how to use the type tool, and that will show you how to do that. You can also find the instructions in Teams. We're actually going to go skip right ahead, and we're going to be adding some text without installing new fonts. I've already done that step. So I'm going to grab my type tool, and we're going to use horizontal type, and we're going to start with a text box. Right now I'm going to make it a big box, but I can always adjust the size later. All right, while that text is selected that Photoshop gives me, I'm going to go ahead and type in my greeting, which is going to be thank you. All righty. Now I know that I want these two words to be spaced out like one on top of the other, so I'm going to go ahead and separate them with the enter symbol or keyboard key, and then I'm going to go ahead and select my text. All right, just remind you of some options you have here in the properties panel. So you can change your font, which is going to really be the most important thing. We want a font that is going to stand out and be easy to read on this card. When you look at any sort of greeting card, the text should always be large and easy to read. So I'm going to kind of search through and hover over these, find one that not only is easy to read, but that I think matches maybe the overall vibe of my card. Now I actually have one in mind called Charlotte, so I'm going to be using that one. All right, now obviously that's not very big, so we're going to go ahead and change the size. Now I took this picture purposely with an empty area in the center for the text, so I'm really going to fill that space with text. Alrighty, now keep in mind you can adjust the spacing between the words, the letters. I already have my text centered, so the only thing now is picking my color. All right, and actually I suggest you do the same thing you did for the background color. So when you're ready for a color, because right now it's orange, I actually think that looks pretty good, but remember if you want to change it, select the text, click on the color box, and instead of just grabbing a color, again, you want to create unity. So picking a color that already exists, so even if I like this orange, maybe I can find another orange in my artwork that matches. Now, sometimes this is not the best idea. I will say that, like sometimes you can find a color that's not actually in your artwork that goes well, but for the most part, it's actually a good thing to do. And I think I actually really like that orange there. So I'm going to click OK. And because that orange belongs somewhere in my artwork, it's going to create some sense of unity. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at that text. I'm going to kind of center it in the area where it's blank. Now, I do think the text, the font is pretty easy to read, but I don't think that it stands out well enough. It kind of gets lost with all the other objects. So I want to try a few things to make the text stand out. What we can do is we can add effects. We can warp the text. We could also add a shape behind it. So I'm going to try a few of those things before I finish this. All right, so I'm going to start by maybe some effects. So I'm going to click on the FX button and I'm going to choose blending options. All right, now when I do that, I have all kinds of options here, which you've already practiced. I was thinking either the outer glow might help to make it stand out, but maybe with a different color. Maybe just even using white or grabbing a color from the background. I'm thinking white actually looks pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna make that disappear and I'm gonna try doing the drop shadow, see which one I like better. Ooh, I think the outer glow definitely makes it stand out better. Okay, maybe I can adjust the size a little bit of the glow just to take up some more room, block a little bit of the objects, and now I think that's super easy to read. Okay, now my other option is adding a shape. So your effects actually appear in the layers panel, so I'm going to hide those effects, and I'm actually going to try to add a shape. I'm going to be using the ellipse tool, holding down shift to create a circle. And like I did before, I'm going to be filling that with a color that already exists, maybe even that dark green. I'm going to press OK. Now it already comes with an outline, so in this stroke option here, I'm going to get rid of it. I don't want an outline. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this underneath my text. I can also use my move tool to like move it around a little bit. And I'm thinking I already like this shape more than I liked the outer glow. So I think that's what I'm going to be using. All right, but I want to see if I can maybe change the opacity if I like, not of the text layer though, of the ellipse layer. Let's see what that looks like. Ooh, I do like a little bit of transparency. That way you can still kind of see the background, but you're still able to read the text really easily. All right, I actually did everything I needed to do for this project. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I file save as a Photoshop file. When you're completely done, you're going to go to File Export, and you're going to export it as a JPEG. All right, don't forget those last few steps for saving, you guys.